Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Vadim and today we're going to talk about Nvidia. In the last month, Nvidia stock surged 30% up, and for some strange reason, everyone right now thinks that Nvidia is a bubble, which is about to burst. We don't think so. We actually think that Nvidia stock has a long way to go. Today we're going to talk about our fair valuation of Nvidia. We're going to talk about the company and the competitive advantage it has, and then talk a little bit about risks of Nvidia. So stay tuned, we'll cover everything. Nvidia stock jumped after absolutely magnificent Q1 results, which they posted. Nvidia stock right now is trading more than $1,200, and we think it's going to get higher. But first of all, let's talk about why we think Nvidia is not really a bubble. In order to do that, we will take three biggest American companies and do a quick comparison between Nvidia and these companies. The companies we're going to talk about are Microsoft, the biggest of them all, Apple and Amazon. First of all, one of the reasons why people think Nvidia right now is the bubble is how fast they grew. Right now, the stock is about $1,200. 5 years ago, you could have bought the same stock for less than 40 bucks. So Nvidia jumped absolutely amazingly in the last 5 years, something which the competitors did not do. Second of all, brand recognition. Ask average person on the street what Microsoft, Apple and Google do, and probably they will tell you. They will tell you that Microsoft is doing Microsoft Office or something like that. Google is doing the search stuff and Apple are doing the iPhone stuff. Ask them about what Nvidia does, and I bet not a lot of them will tell you. Some of them might tell you they are doing the graphic cards, but they are doing much more. Actually, we are surrounded with things in which Nvidia is involved. Right now, you're watching this video on YouTube, which is powered by data centers which are running Nvidia's GPUs. Moreover, very trendy things right now, like for example, crypto mining, like AI, like IoT and self-driving cars. All of them have Nvidia chips in it. If we're talking about data center business, Nvidia has actually have a market share of between 70 and 95% of all of the chips that are running data centers today. The third reason why I think Nvidia is not being recognized as a true market leader, they don't have an iconic CEO. Their CEO is awesome, and I think one day he will be iconic as soon as we get used to him. Apple had Steve Jobs, Microsoft had Bill Gates, and Amazon had their weird guy with cowboy hat who likes to fly to the space. But Nvidia CEO, again, I'm willing to bet that not a lot of people on the street will tell you who Nvidia CEO is. Before we move to Nvidia's valuation, let's take a very quick look at what Nvidia actually does. Nvidia started as the graphic card company. In 2006, some researchers in Stanford found out that actually GPUs can do mathematical computation much faster than regular CPUs, and that was a groundbreaking deal for Nvidia. They started producing their GPUs not only for graphics, but actually for different kinds of computations. And right now, we're in a position where both Microsoft, AWS or Amazon and Apple are all using Nvidia's GPUs for their own clouds, for their own computation. Now let's talk about Nvidia's valuation. Actually, I have 5 reasons to believe that Nvidia's stock is very undervalued right now. And we're going to take Nvidia's financial data from the last quarter and compare it to their competitors, to Amazon, to Microsoft, and to Apple. Since these companies are very different, but they're all huge, they're all technological, we are not going to compare, for example, their revenues, we're going to compare their revenue growth. The same with the earnings. We're not going to talk about the earnings, the number itself, but with earnings growth. Let's take a look at the data. So as you can see here, if we're talking about market cap, all of the companies are pretty much the same size. Microsoft, Apple, and Nvidia are over $3 trillion, and Amazon is lagging behind. Revenue here, you can see that Nvidia is actually has the least revenue of them all, with Amazon leading the pack. The interesting thing is revenue growth. If we take a look at Microsoft, it's around 7%, which is pretty good for the company that size. 7% is actually quite amazing. Apple is not really growing, -3%. Amazon with a very good 11% growth. Nvidia posted right now 262% growth year over year, and we are talking about revenue growth. These are just insane numbers. These are numbers of a small cap company. Net income, we can see that Apple is leading the pack, good for them. If we take a look at net income growth, we can see Microsoft, no real growth there. Apple about -3%. Amazon, we cannot calculate because actually their net income was negative last year. Nvidia with 600% of net income growth year over year, again, crazy numbers. But what actually the most impressive about the company is the next number. It's mind-boggling if you think about this a little bit. Why? Because Microsoft has net profit margin at around 34%. Now, net profit margin is the percentage of the profit which you get from your revenues. Microsoft is a mostly software company, 34% is great. Apple is more of a hardware company, 25% again, awesome. Amazon is very heavy on retail business, 5% is okay, it's pretty good. Nvidia, which without a doubt, a very hardware company with a very hardware costs to that company, have margin of 53%. These are insane margins. These are margins of probably Pablo Escobar 40 years ago. I haven't seen anything like that, these margins for the company that size. One of the very impressive things about Nvidia is the number of employees. Microsoft has about 200,000, Apple about 161,000, Amazon gazillion employees. Nvidia has around 30,000 employees, which achieve all this growth and all this success. Hopefully at this point I have convinced you that Nvidia is in the strongest position right now in terms of profitability, in terms of growth. Basically, it should be valued at a premium to these three companies. To value these companies, we won't be taking a look at the price to earnings rate because the companies are growing in very different paces. So instead we're going to take PEG ratio. PEG ratio, basically it's price to earnings divided by growth. So we're normalizing to the growth. If you have a company which has a PE ratio of 100 and is growing 100% a year, its PEG ratio will be 1. I remember about 10-15 years ago, software companies, their average PEG ratio was around 1.77. Now, if we take a look at the PEG ratios of these four companies, Microsoft has a bit more than 2, Apple has again a little bit more than 2, Amazon with 1.93 and Nvidia with 1.53. So Nvidia is actually underpriced related to these three companies. If we take an average of Microsoft, Apple and Amazon, we get an average PEG ratio of 203. Nvidia at least, I would say at least, needs to get to this PEG ratio, which means that Nvidia is undervalued by about 32%. If we're taking Nvidia's stock price right now of $1,200, multiply it by 32%, we are getting to a valuation of Nvidia of around $1,608. These are fairly reasonable numbers to which Nvidia can jump over the next few quarters. Before we are moving to the risks and competitors of Nvidia, mini disclaimer. You're looking at this 32% undervaluation of Nvidia before you go and YOLO all of your hard-earned money of Nvidia out of the money calls like roaring kitty. Can Nvidia go down? It absolutely can. The market is not very stable right now. Nvidia has a lot of risks. There are a bunch of potential competitors to Nvidia, so keep watching. We're going to talk about this right now. By the way, before we begin, if you find this information, this analysis valuable, please subscribe to our channel. It will help us a lot. Of course, don't forget about the like button and write in a comment, what did you like? Do you want a follow-up video of Nvidia, for example, or some other stock? See you in the comment section. About the risks. First of all, oversupply in the market. Market was in huge shortage about 2 years ago, but it's over right now. Nvidia is running the risks of oversupplying the market and keeping a huge inventory of chips on their plate. This is not the case right now, but it potentially definitely can happen. The second risk might be regulatory. From 2022, US banned export of AI-related chips to China, although there are a bunch of articles on the internet that Chinese schools and universities still somehow use NVIDIA chips, but further export bans can potentially harm NVIDIA's business. And the last most critical risk is, of course, competitors. For right now, there is not a lot of competitions for NVIDIA. We haven't even talked about companies like Intel and AMD and Broadcom, simply because these companies are nowhere near NVIDIA's, both in terms of market share of GPUs and in terms of performance of their chips. But if you're running a business with profit margins of 55% and earn this enormous money, be certain that there is a target on your back. A lot of companies, including Microsoft and including AWS, are right now planning to develop their own chips. Actually, Apple started doing this for a couple of years now. AWS is starting to develop their own chips to run in their own data centers, and of course AMD, Intel, Broadcom, all of these companies. One thing to keep in mind: will Nvidia's growth stay the same for the next, let's say, 5 years? Definitely not. Right now the market is pricing Nvidia's growth at about 34% for the next couple of years, which is much less than we've seen this year. So market is actually very sane about Nvidia's chances and about how they are valued right now. Will Nvidia have the same profit margin over the next 5 years? Definitely not. These margins are not sustainable, but what we actually claim is that they don't need to be for Nvidia to hit this $1,600 for a stock. So it's your money, make your own decision, do your own research. If you have any questions about Nvidia, feel free to ask away in the comment section and I will try to get to everyone. Thanks for watching this video. Have a great week, have a great investment week, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care.